Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Here's our review of England's Euro 2020 tournament, which of course in an agonising penalty shootout defeat against Italy. Despite that, there were a lot of positives for England to take. We'll talk about that in this video and much more. Also, where England can improve ahead of next year's World Cup. The key points in our Euro 2020 tournament campaign, and as well as the positives as I've mentioned. So if you're new to Garage Short, please subscribe to us and let us know your thoughts on England's tournament in the comments below. It'd be brilliant to read those. So I'm joined again by John and Jack. We've got their own channels, so subscribe to them, guys. There are links in the description below. So lads, thanks for joining. So me and you, John, we both predicted that before the tournament that England would get to the semis, and it's our best chance for a number of years. Jack, it'd be interesting to see what you thought, mate. How did you think England would have done? What were your predictions?
I didn't really expect England. I know, obviously, we got to the semis in the previous World Cup anyway. The squad is very talented. I think we can all agree. A lot of players have been to European finals, and obviously Trent didn't go. Obviously missed out due to injury, mate. But it was very promising. The future is very bright. I know we all would have loved to have won on Sunday night, and I think every single one of us would. But I think the future is bright. I think one more, which we'll discuss in a couple of minutes, but the Southgate probably for me deserves at least one more hit at it, really, in terms of the tournament. But above expectations, really, for me personally, getting to the final, and then going to pens, it's always 50-50, regardless, depending on, you can practice penalties so much, but if there was one way for England to get knocked out, it would have been penalties, wouldn't it, mate?
Yeah, I think we all knew as soon as it went to penalties that Italy were, going to get over the line. Eventually, they did. But as you say, mate, a lot of positives, and we'll start off with the first group game. Croatia probably on paper was going to be our hardest team to face in the opening three games, and but we sort of got revenge for our World Cup defeat by winning 1-0. Raheem Sterling, who, to be fair, a lot of people were questioning whether he would have started or not. Me and John did our lineups for the Croatia game, and I don't think we put him Sterling in the starting lineup. I certainly didn't, and I don't think the other guys did either. But he proved his critics wrong, got the opening goal, and it was outstanding during the tournament. A big plus for England. And I don't think any of us, John, picked Kieran Trippier to play at left back, eh?
No, mate, we didn't in any shape or form. And once again, thanks for having this on. As you remember from the preview, I said out of the three games we had for the qualifying rounds, Croatia scared me the most out of the three. And that you could argue that was the most comfortable game out of the three of it. But yeah, Kieran Trippier was just totally random, but it worked. It worked. Southgate hardly got anything wrong. Throughout the tournament. But yeah, the Croatia game was a hard watch to watch, but it was easier than the other two. That was for sure.
Yeah, well, no matter how you get the win, how you get the points in the opening group game, you got to do them. And we showed, obviously, in the World Cup, beating Tunisia in the opening game, made the rest of that group stage a lot easier, and it did so in this tournament. We beat Croatia, so it was a good goal by Raheem Sterling after a good move, and we got the win. So then the second game, the Scotland game, is always going to be a fiery affair, and it was by far England's worst performance in the whole Euros. But it's one of them. If you can't win, you got to shit house a point, and we did. So we got a point. We didn't lose. Jake, your thoughts on the Scotland game?
It's a weird one, mate, wasn't it? It was probably the blueprint, obviously, from the Croatia game. I think it was obviously the blueprint was there. We weren't too expansive, really. We didn't get forward enough. But given the injury crisis in which England did have potentially before the tournament, was Maguire going to be 100%? And obviously Tyrone Mings, he played very well for Aston Villa. Did Mings start the first game? Did he?
First two he started, yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, first two, yeah. I thought he played all right. Not like we were put under loads of pressure, really, but he's done his job, and obviously Harry Maguire, which we'll discuss a bit later. I think we could have learned a bit more, and considering how the Italian game planned out in the final, it was very similar in terms of we didn't go a bit too forward, and Scotland were very much happy to just soak up pressure. And as you mentioned there, Bill, it was the we didn't go forward against Croatia that much. If we did, it was only in drips and drabs, really. But I was disappointed by the Scotland game, but hey, we got to the final. But I think that they would have just a little murmurings of really, you could take away that Liverpool, England could have really a bit more expansive, really, especially in that game, considering how obviously the Italian game panned out, really, mate. But a point was a point, and given in the long run how that helped us, I think, most important thing was that we didn't lose, and I think that was what were the strong foundations defensively, which we set up.
Yeah, no, spot on, mate. Thoughts on that, John?
There's not much really more to say. My only criticism of the Scotland game really was the fact that it wasn't the passion that we were expecting to see. I think us as a supporters, we got more enthusiastic about it than the players did. What was it? We only had one shot on target, if I remember correctly. I think.
Yeah, it wasn't much, no.
Yeah, and and that just kind of sums it up because I mean. When we were talking about it in the preview, we said a win over Scotland and a draw against Croatia and the 3 points against the Czech Republic. And as usual, it goes the wrong way round, doesn't it? But at the same point, it's just that's the thing. It's just it keeps the momentum going. But as I said, it's just there wasn't enough application in that game for me. It was kind of like everybody in and around the entire 50 miles of London were up for it, apart from the 11 guys on the pitch. That's how it seemed. That's how it seemed to be.
Yeah, and Scotland had a few chances, especially I think Che Adams missed an absolute, went to sit a big chance, and if Scotland had a centre forward like Ronaldo and Schick or Lukaku or someone, I think Scotland go on and win the game. But as you say, lads, we get the point and then we move on, and we did so in the last group game where we beat Czech Republic 1-0, and I'm glad we actually got the win because I hated this silly, and ridiculous, let's play for the point, let's try and get for second, not having it at all. We've got to try and win every game and build momentum. And as we talked about, John, in our preview, that Dennis went through the incredibly complicated routes that UEFA have sorted out for this tournament and also the last Euros. And no matter what route we took, it was going to be difficult. So I'm glad we got the win. It was a much better performance against a good Czech Republic team, as they showed throughout the tournament. And it was that man in the game, Raheem Sterling, with another goal. And it was great to see Harry Maguire back in the side. And Bukayo Saka, he started as well as Jack Grealish. So your thoughts on that win over Czech Republic, John?
Very, very comfortable. Very, very comfortable. The Czechs gave a good battle, which is and we saw that in the latter stages as well for that match of the Euros. But it was hard not to be enthralled by it. It's purely bearing in mind there was 3 West Ham players on the pitch. That was obviously there's the big thing from our point of view, but. Overall, the Czech Republic really gave account of themselves. Schlick I felt was a little bit unlucky with however you pronounce his name. I can never remember how you pronounce his name properly, but I thought he was a bit unlucky with a couple of chances that he had. Any other day they were probably more goal bound than they were, but like you said, mate, build on the momentum, start get rid of this Allardyce style thinking of respect the point and go. And we should have gone all guns blazing for all 3 games.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Thoughts, Jack, comfortable in the end?
Yeah, it was a comfortable win, mate. And I was very impressed by Czech Republic. I think, given Patrick Schick as already mentioned, Kufal, obviously your lads, Souček as well. You had some, I tell you, in the future, I think a couple of their squad were quite young, so we'll see a lot more of them in the coming years to come. But given how well they played in the latter stages of this tournament, I think England, we done the job, as we said in the previous 2 results, but getting the 3 points was so massive. And given the response in which we wanted, we needed the win. Obviously, we discussed about the routes and all that, but I think every single one of us was so happy when that ball hit the back of the net anyway. And it's, I think, when you're glossing over it, the back end of the tournament, as we're doing now, I think, as you mentioned, I think we could have gone a bit more expansive given the players in which we have got at our disposal, as which as Southgate has. But 3 points is all that matter really. But it done the job and we went through, mates. But yeah, it could have been a lot more difficult given how good how well they played, mates. But
yeah, Yeah, exactly. We finished top of the group, so no complaints really. And then it was the big one into knockout stages. Last 16 against Germany, obviously at Wembley, and it was about time, lads, that we beat a big nation in a knockout game, and our knockout game win ratio especially in the Euros, is that it was absolutely shocking before this tournament. It was awful. So it was good to get rid of that record. But when was the last time we beat a big nation in a knockout game? Yeah, it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
So we did the job, and 2-0, very very good win, lads. So Jack, your thoughts on that win?
Yeah, very impressed, mate. I think obviously Southgate did change his formation. The final formation, it was like the three basically five at the back anyway. We played against Germany, and it's what you've got to do against top opposition. Germany, they're not the opposition of recent years anyway. Not got the likes of Philipp Lahm, Sebastian Schweinsteiger, and that, but they still got very good technical players. Kimmich, we've seen it throughout the whole of the group stage. He was absolutely barnstorming it down the right hand flank, and I thought he would have been a more of a threat. But I think we coped very well with him and the quality of the player. Kai Havertz, we've seen what he's done for Chelsea in Champions League. So we controlled the game. I was impressed by how well we controlled the game, and obviously the pace in which we had at our disposal, the sheer counter attacking, which I was very impressed with. But that's what you got to do when you're when you're against top teams. Take your chances, and we did. And yeah, I haven't celebrated an England goal like that in a very long time. And it's against Germany, so
Exactly.
our arch enemies. So, but yeah, very impressed with the way in which we set up, mate.
Yeah, 100%, and kept another clean sheet, and that man Raheem Sterling got the opening goal. By far, I'd say England's best player at this tournament, in my opinion. And Harry Kane, the captain, he joined the party. Obviously, went goalless in the group stage and was coming under a bit of criticism, and but he got the second goal to seal the win. I mean, thoughts on the Germany win, John?
Yeah, elation is the first word that comes to mind with that. Jack, as you're saying, mate, it was just literally matching Germany's formation, because Southgate has said beforehand and again repeated it afterwards that you noticed that was their strength, but also their weakness against Portugal in the earlier rounds as well. So he noticed a few issues with that. Overall, I thought we did really, really well, very, very well. Very, very good. I was one of the people that was wondering what was going on with Kane. Bill, you and I were talking about maybe it was down. He's got an injury or something. There was something that looked like there was a cloud hanging over his head. Maybe it was his contract, whatever. And then stepped up at the right time. Unfortunately, that he did, because if any other day, Muller's goal's going in. His attempt is absolutely going in, and Germany are still showed how technically brilliant they still are, and always have been. But at the same point, they're not the Germany that we've seen for a long, long time, and that could have easily gone to extra time. And I'm glad that our game against Germany was the only one that didn't out of those rounds. To be honest with you, because it just get it over and done with. Kane stepped up at the right area at the right time, and bam, that's it, 2-0, job done.
Yeah, I think, absolutely. And we're moving to the quarters in this game, we can easily just gloss over, to be honest, because it was so comfortable. We've beaten, Ukraine 4-0 and got off to the perfect start. Harry Kane, his confidence was back, scored, in 4 minutes, and he got another one. Maguire and Henderson scored in the second half as well. But but it was as comfortable, if not even more comfortable, than the quarterfinal against Sweden at the World Cup.
On, and just to wrap it up, Bill, just quickly, sorry. Obviously, while we're talking about Germany, I'm sure you and Jack will send our condolences to the families in Germany and Belgium that are being affected by these awful floods at the minute. I mean, it's highly unlikely anyone's from the countries are going to be watching it, but you never know. Somebody might be. But it's awful to see what's going on at the minute. And I know a lot of people won't say, "Oh, it's Germany," blah blah blah, but genuine people will be thinking about those families at this very, very difficult time for everybody over there.
No, totally spot on, mate. Totally agree. Thinking of all those people affected. Jay, your thoughts on that quarterfinal? Was routine as you're going to get in a knockout match?
Yeah, echo those words, everyone as well. Any German viewers or any family members, overall keeping safe and well. Yeah, mate, Ukraine. It was, I think, in the overall picture, it was probably one of my most exciting games. Obviously, given the amount of goals we did play, yes, you can talk about the opposition, but it was a lot of false hope, given how well we played. But obviously, that's balanced with obviously the opposition which you're playing, and then you go into the final and you see the way in which we play. Yes, you can play a bit more expansive when you're playing lesser opposition, but no discredit to Ukraine. I think he could have done with the manager being on the pitch. I think he would have done a better job anyway. But Yarmolenko, they done very well. I tell you what, Ukraine to get as far as they did. I think did they lose the first 2 games in the group stages, or
They certainly lost to the Netherlands.
Yeah, it was mad, like, but yeah, I was very impressed. Endo getting his goal, long overdue. Well, he didn't miss that penalty a couple of weeks prior, but it was.
Not that you're bitter about that in any shape or form.
No, I think he should have been on the pitch, which we'll discuss in a minute anyway. But yeah, it's very impressed, mate. Obviously, Harry Kane, as we mentioned in the match prior, it brought the goal scorers really. They thrive and they live off confidence, really. I mean, as you mentioned, Harry Kane probably did get his move to City sorted before then, so he must have had a bit of confidence boost. And an extra 200k in his bank account anyway a week. So yeah, he was a man possessed in that game. Obviously, I think it was that shot where he hit it on the volley and I think the keeper just tipped it over. Yeah, he really grew into the tournament the match prior, but this game he stood out really, and that's one thing I think. Even I was saying to me and my mates, and obviously probably you, Bill, and the lads were mentioning, he looked a bit injured. I don't know, it looked like he was injured, but I think my dad's quicker when he's running through on goal. I don't know. But he just, when you watch him, don't get me wrong, he's a world-class striker, but it just doesn't. I think that must be the Harry Kane movement anyway, mate. But yeah, job done. 4 goals and a lot of false hope going into the final.
Yeah, but another change by Southgate, which worked, was for the Ukraine game, was Jadon Sancho coming in on the right hand side, and he was excellent, I thought. So another change that Southgate made, and it worked. So moving on to the semi-finals, played Denmark, who obviously did brilliantly to get there, and even more so after the horrific incident with Christian Eriksen in the opening game against Finland. But and they made it hard for us. A good side, Denmark, plenty of good players playing in the top leagues and stuff. But and especially as they scored the first goal that England conceded in this tournament, Damsgaard with a free kick, and fair play to the boys for bouncing back. And all right, it took extra time, but and a missed penalty by Harry Kane, which he tucked in the rebound. But no, fair play to the lads for showing character and getting us into the final. All right, so your thoughts, John, on the semi-final winning against Denmark?
So, let's say shocking, absolutely shocking, because it was in a very, very, very good way. Nobody expected us to play as well as we did in that game, especially with it being a semi-final. And Denmark are a very, very good side to beat. Like for example, Schmeichel, even though I called him Peter Schmeichel at the time, an old habits die hard, mate. He
played like his dad.
He did very play, and that's half the problem. I did say that it's to Schmeichel's credit being in that side against the England side, but it's also to our credit as well, because we know how to score against it. Those players know how to score against him, and he knows how to save as well against us as well. So, but yeah, no, it was a very, very good performance, very, very comfortable. And as I say, I do genuinely think that from the quarterfinals onwards, Declan Rice, Calvin Phillips, Mason Mount were all really finding their feet with that, with the tournament. The more it was going on, the more they were learning. Calvin Phillips seemed to be a little bit more taking more of the plaudits than Rice or Mount, which is fine. It's not, you can't disagree. He had an unbelievable tournament. But as I said, just overall very, very happy, and like we've just been saying, the failed penalty by Kane, but he's there straight there for the follow up and bangs it in the back of the net. Can't believe there's still idiots in this day and age, bearing in mind what we've all been through over the last 15-16 months. Some little dickhead still takes a laser pen and shines it in Schmeichel's eye just before the penalty's taken. It's ridiculous. But as I say, that really was the only negative of that, because it was a brilliant performance all round.
Yeah, agreed, mate. Yeah, and you, Jack, as well. I think we played well as you can in obviously a high intensity semi final with that amount of pressure on us. So we get to the final, our first final in any competition since 1966, and obviously we know what happened with Italy winning on a penalty shootout. But I mean, obviously there's probably a couple of negatives from this game, which we'll talk about sort of later in terms of what England can improve in and so on. But your thoughts, John, on obviously the finals is disappointing to lose, especially in the penalty shootout. But how did you think England did in the game and the obviously the 90 minutes and the extra time?
I said in the preview that it was either going to be France, Italy, or there's another team. I can't remember who it was. I'm sure we talked about Italy winning it. I remember when watching Spain versus Italy. I just said that's it. Italy's won it. Italy's won it. Two of the best teams got to the final. Totally, really, really good performance from them. Italy went back to the old days of being very dogged, very aggressive, and just farting around, quite frankly, as we all know, which I'm sure we'll come on to in a minute. But in general, it was a very, very entertaining final. Very nerve wracking to watch. Felt comfortable going in at the break, leading. It was 1-0 at half time. I felt very, very comfortable. The second that Italy goal went in, my nerves went to 11. They really did. I was just like, this, Christ almighty, this, you know what's happening, especially bearing in mind with the substitutions that Mancini was making towards the end of the normal time. You could blatantly see he was preparing for extra time and penalties. This is the only game, I think, where Southgate made his decisions I can't say wrong, but they weren't right either, for that matter. For example, taking Rice off and bringing Henderson on completely changed the game for England. I understand why he did it, because again, Southgate could see it was going to go the distance, and Henderson's got that experience, as Jack touched on earlier. But yeah, that was the worrying thing, was not making enough substitutions at the right time. We could have easily won that game towards the end, between 80 and 90 minutes. We could have easily had it, but we didn't. And that's the only criticism. But as I said, for the boys played well. Everybody played as hard as they could. You could tell they were trying as best as they could, but dirty tactics from a certain midfielder, shall we say, and slightly dodgy refereeing decisions as well, in comparison to how decisions were going on in the other games, giving reds out very easily, and all of a sudden when there should have been a red, it was a yellow. So it was balanced from one point of view, but yeah, up until the penalty point, I was very, 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 very happy.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. Yeah, I think I think we played really well, especially in the first half. It was a really good move, and fantastic finish by Luke Shaw. What a way to get your first international goal in the final, in particular. But I just felt around the time of the Nucci equaliser for Italy, I think they had the control of the game in the second half. And could we have made the subs a bit early in the second in extra time? I think we could have done, which we'll talk about, I think, later on, where we can improve. But I think could have we attacked more in extra time? I think we could have. I think we could have sealed it before penalties. And then penalties, it's hard to criticise any of the players who stepped up. Fair play to all of them. And obviously gut wrenching to lose. But Jack, your thoughts on the final, mate?
Yeah, it's as I said at the top of the show, I think England did score a bit too early. And I think as soon as that ball went in, even everyone all around England, and you could sense it on the microphones around the stadium, there was so much tension, and we all weren't even in the ground.
Yeah, you can feel
and
it.
And it's 50. Say Liverpool, when we eventually won the league after 30 odd years. This is 55 years since England have been in a major tournament. Obviously, the women's went to a final, but for the men's, it was surreal, and it was like, we're here, we're halfway there, we've got the goal. And then it was like, obviously we've not, that was our style in which the whole through the tournaments, as we just discussed in the previous results, we weren't as expansive. But as we said, I thought it was going to be 1-0, but it was the sheer pressure that John's already alluded to, that Mancini making the amount of changes in which he did. And I think, as you mentioned there, Bill, Southgate, probably inexperienced as a manager. Mancini's won trophy after trophy in every country he's been, and he won the Euros now this year. So it was inexperience from Southgate, but he'll learn that. And I'm hoping come the World Cup, hopefully we can get to the final and have a big opportunity to win it. But disappointing the way in which the game panned out, mate. But we'll discuss penalties in a little second.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, now, of course, it's disappointing to lose any penalty shootout, whether it's club, country, no matter what competition, but especially in a final, European Championship final, of course. So, on the shootout, Italy won it 3-2 in the end, but England, we got off to a good start. Harry Kane tucked his penalty away, the first one, and Harry Maguire in particular, he smashed his in the top bins. Brilliant penalty, and looked like we might go on and win it, but, obviously penalties are absolute lottery, and John Pickford was outstanding, made a couple of saves, but in the end it wasn't quite enough. And hats off to all the penalty takers, but particularly, Rashford, Sancho, and Saka, unfortunately, theirs were missed. But thoughts on the shootout, John?
Your description of Harry Maguire's smashing it, absolutely true, because he killed that camera when it went into the back of the net. Absolutely, the whole screen went white for half a second.
It'll get an invoice shortly.
That was a couple of grand that are camera as well.
It can afford it, luckily.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was very, very tense, of course, and I'm glad that it didn't go as long as penalties can do. But to be honest with you, fair play to everybody that stood up and took the pressure. None of the players have deserved anything that they've had at them since then.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
been it's ridiculous to say the least.
Yeah, disgraceful.
The stuff that's been going on.
Yeah.
And you knew something was going to come out when Jack Grealish responded to Sky Sports saying, pretty much, get your facts right. I wanted to take the penalty, but I wasn't in the line in the first four or five to do it. So you knew something else was going to happen, and of course everything else did. But fair play to Jadon Sancho and everybody, and Saka more specifically. His first ever tournament, one of England's best prospects, shall we say. Saka, I think he's been playing fantastically. My only criticism of the penalty takers is that stupid bloody stuttering run up that Rashford did. If you're going to do it, at least get it on target. That's the only criticism I've got of that. But in general, Donnarumma is an unbelievably difficult keeper to get past, and he quite rightly at the end of it got player of the tournament. A few other people very, very close behind him, especially for Italy, like for example, as Jack mentioned there, Chaisa was one of their best players of the whole tournament. He really, really was. But heartbreak from an England perspective. But first, I was talking to my housemates afterwards. Just one of them said, "Are you going to be crying?" I said, "Well, why? This is the first time we've been there for 55 years. I'm so proud of these boys. They've gone well above expectations, without getting too business-like. But they've absolutely smashed everything that we ever thought was ever going to happen. When you can, as we were kind of hinting on, there was a bit of negative football from Southgate, but we went toe-to-toe with Italy for the entire time. Didn't concede anything other than that, and." Yeah, just the pride overrules the heartbreak.
Yeah, no, spot on, mate. Wouldn't disagree with that. So, let's focus on the positives, lads. Obviously, of which there were many for England throughout the tournament. Obviously, get to the final, of course, but a load of standout players. I think you mentioned a few already. But some Southgate's tactics and worked, etc., which we'll go through. But you thought, Jack, overall on the positives for England?
Yeah, positives, as I mentioned, mate. The three, Declan Rice, spoken heavily over the last couple of years on your channel, mates, and with John and a couple of West Ham mates as well. I'm hoping, as I said, stays at West Ham, but I think there'll be a lot of big teams coming in for him in the next couple of years, but keeps his head down, focuses on his football, and you never know, could captain West Ham in a couple of years, or potentially once Noble retires. But yeah, Phillips and Rice, as John mentioned, alludes to the combination play between those two. No one was getting past them. Frankly, I know Henderson, a lot of experience, but he did not deserve to get in. I know he was injured before the tournament, but it was impossible to wedge those two out. Those were probably two of my favourite players. Pickford as well. Luke Shaw, about time he started playing decent. I know he's had injury records, but yeah, I think he's unmatched this season in terms of left back place in world football. He was phenomenal, obviously getting his goal and the way I like the defensive reassurance. Yes, Southgate's got a plethora of really great talent within his squad, But in terms of the defensive structure of England, I think if we can get that right and then get the attack and offensive side of our game right and the balance, I think going into the World Cup, I think it have set us up very strong. And obviously, as John and you mentioned, Bill, the sheer confidence in which Saka, it was the disgraceful stuff that was happening after the game. Regardless, whoever it was, backgrounds you've got, everyone stands together, and it's a small minority of absolute idiots. And until social media companies and football clubs and government bodies within society actually take it by the horns, really, and focus on the issues and just get, like, stamp it out. It's a game of footy. It brings you, Bill, John, me, and have connected with a load of group of mates, and within that I would never met. And it's football. It's meant to unite people, and hopefully in the future we don't see this, but it's small minority. But the only stand we can stand is standing together. And obviously Saka, 18 years old. I'm telling you, lads, and everyone at home watching, imagine being 18 years old and that pressure, the confidence on the lads to imagine in an ideal world, another parallel universe, England actually won the Euros and he was the lad to score the winner. It takes a lot of bottle, really, to go, yeah, boss, I'll take the fifth one. As John mentioned, the stutter, but all the lads throughout the tournament done us so proud. And I think Southgate's learned a lot, and the players have got all this experience now. Seeing like Mason Mount going to Champions League finals, Foden, I think he was injured in the latter stages, but there's so much talent and a lot of positives, as you mentioned there, lads, and everyone at home. Let us know, but it's so positive going forward for the World Cup, and I obviously get our club footy sorted in the next couple of years. Well, it's next year, isn't it, boys? The World Cup.
Yeah, next year.
Yeah, it's going to be coming around very, very quick, and I think Southgate get the right balance, keep it as it is, the defence, because I don't think there's a lot of changing really, but just try and tinker and be a bit more positive in terms of the way in which we approach bigger teams and even the lesser teams as well. But I think so positive the way in which, and it was the fact that we got to a final, lads, and everyone at home, the first time in 55 years. I don't think any of us expected that prior to the tournament. But yeah, absolutely spot on, mate. So many positives.
No, I completely echo with everything you said, mate. Before we come to you, John, I think, there were so many positives, from back to front, really. I think, Jordan Pickford was outstanding. Only conceded 2 goals, and they were both to set pieces, of course. I thought he was absolutely outstanding, and I think he was one of the players, like you said, John, who probably ran Donnarumma closer player of the tournament, you'd have to say. I think the defence as a whole were absolutely brilliant. Obviously, as I say, only conceded 2 goals, but they gelled very well and made it hard for pretty much every side. Walker was really good. Stones, no mistakes from him. There's a question mark over him. He was solid. Maguire come back from injury was brilliant when he came in. Trippier when he played was very good. Luke Shaw, took his Man United form to England. And Jack, you mentioned Phillips and Rice was their first tournament, and despite their lack of European experience,
so good.
As Neil Diamond would say, that was so good, and particularly Phillips, because he's only played 1 Premier League season with Leeds. So, and obviously Rice played a few seasons with West Ham, but Phillips really impressed me. And going in the forward areas, Raheem Sterling, questionable whether he'd start the tournament because his second half of the season at Man City was mediocre by his very high standards of the previous couple of seasons, but he was outstanding. He got his first tournament goals for England, so he was, for me, our best player. And a slow start for Harry Kane, but he got his customary goals for England. So Bukayo Saka again, obviously the shootout aside, I thought he was really good. And the likes of even Tyrone Mings, I think he played the first 2 games. His form was question going into it, but I thought he was pretty solid. So so many positives. So there's probably loads, but we're going to run out of time soon. But John, I'm sure we might have mentioned him already, but your thoughts on the positives for England?
There isn't much more to talk about, to be fair, mate. Like you said, only conceding 2 goals. I mean, Manchester's very, very proud of their back four. Luke Shaw, very, very deserved that goal. Had a fantastic tournament. Grealish had a very, very fantastic tournament. Didn't go down didn't go down as much as he does in the league. So that kind of tells you all you need to know about him. But as I say, there's like you touched on, Sterling was. I remember saying in the preview, he's not as. I don't rate him as high as everybody else does. I remember you came into a bit of criticism from you and the other guy that was with us at the time, but to a degree, Sterling proved me right. But fair play to the man, like everybody else, he really grew into the tournament pretty much from the last 16 onwards. There's Pickford. There's more negatives than positives on a few things for him, but yeah, brilliant to see him commanding the back line the whole time. Made some fantastic saves. Some of the saves a couple of years ago he certainly isn't making them for Everton, that's for sure. But no, there's I say we've between the three of us, we've really pretty much touched on all of the positives.
Sorry there, John. It was the club mentality as well, do you reckon, lads? And everyone at home.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Something that picked up. And the club mentality in which Southgate, yes, what we've labelled as offensive style of football, but the togetherness, even for, I think, a lot of pros, for Conor Cody as well, a lot of people. But the club mentality which Southgate is installed in this squad, it's absolutely fantastic. And the way in which they're not even media trained, they're so relaxed. But the media respect them a lot more now. And I think that's what's going to be so important if England are to go on and win these competitions at the international stages. I think they're so, not media trained, but they're so relaxed and they're surrounded by media 24/7. But yeah, the club mentality was a massive key point for me this tournament as well.
Yeah, great shout, mate. I totally echo that. And I think a big plus is Gareth Southgate. I think if you look at on Twitter before every game, on the team lineups was absolute meltdown by a lot of fans. Hashtag Southgate out was trending a lot. But apart from, say, the final, which we'll touch on in maybe the negatives or things to work on, I think he got everything spot on up to the final. With his lineups, the formations, making subs at decent times, and playing one player in and he's rested for the next, and horses for courses mentality, and it's great to see. It's such a refreshing change rather than this ridiculous, Sven-Göran Eriksson when he was in charge playing the same players every game and same formation every game. We've got a manager who, I think Gary Neville absolutely nailed it early on, where he's probably our biggest asset as a nation, like this England football side and the men's football side. So I think Southgate built on from obviously the World Cup, and it proved that that wasn't a flash in the pan, obviously, by taking us one step further. So a lot of positives, lads. So let's talk about what England can improve, and in terms of going one step further and hopefully going on to win the World Cup in Qatar next year. I mean, John, your thoughts on where we can improve and maybe where Southgate can improve?
As you remember from the preview when we were talking about the 88 defenders he took in the lineup, and I said, remember it was trending for a good few days about having 6 right backs and all that sort of stuff, and I said in the preview, I hope this doesn't come back to bite him, and it didn't. It really didn't. So props to him for that. But having said that, when you're saying about Sven-Göran Eriksson and everybody else, when we found out that Maguire and Henderson were in the side, again, big risk paid off. I don't think he should be doing that again. I really think he should be picking players that are not 100%, because nobody's ever 100% fit, but you know what I mean. There's like 75-80% fit. Not what people that are coming back and he's taking a risk on. I say it works, but taking a risk only gets you so far. That's my criticism of Southgate. It's just to make sure that he doesn't slip into the same mold of picking all the same players, and like you're saying, and that a lot of managers tend to do after 25-30 years in the media pretty much picking the football team for him and stuff, as it's been beforehand. We touched on it with the final, the substitutions. Even sometimes they've been questionable, not just in the final, but in the earlier stages. We're kind of not really thinking like that. Like, for example, when he made the substitution of Grealish and then took him off 15-20 minutes later. But having said that, the bigger negative for me really is the fact that we're not passing to each other enough. that's how we scored the 4 goals against Ukraine. It was very, very, very subjective with that, and also against Belgium as well, for that matter. Sterling and Kane weren't linking up enough for me. They weren't doing enough interchanges between each other. But we were very fortunate to get through with only conceding 2 goals in that vein. But at the same point, we should have scored a lot more in the qualifying rounds. We should have scored a few more in the last against Germany, and to a lesser extent Belgium as well, for that matter.
Not Belgium. We didn't play them.
Not Belgium. Sorry, there's World Cup still in my head for some stupid reason. But there's just the because we were talking about that during the Belgium game, about the link-up play between Lukaku and Prince Harry. That's why it was in. That's why it's in my head still. But from the Ukraine game onwards, everything was the only thing and Jack touched on it a little bit earlier, is Pickford's mentality. Some of those short passes he was playing were very, very risky, very, very risky. Again, paid off because everyone was shit hot to it, because it's a common ground of a goalkeeper that they're going to make mistakes. So the defense has really got to be absolutely on 100% the whole way for it. But there's a few things. I think Pickford could have made a few more hand saves rather than fingertip saves. Bill, you know me, mate. You know me well enough that I hate to see it. If you can get your palm on the hand, you can get your hands right round it. There's some of the goals, some of the clearances he was doing with his fists. I was like, mate, just grab the ball, because we're not confident when you're doing those sort of clearances. But that's it. That's pretty much all the only negatives I can think of.
Yeah, there's not a lot to go over, is there, mate? Before I come to you, Jack, I just think I think for me, as much as we've praised Phillips and Rice, and rightly so, for how well they've played the time, I think Southgate at times, he needs to, especially when we obviously need to score more or goals, get back into the game and etc. Is he needs to take one of them off with a good amount of time left to go. I think there were too many times where they both played for a heck of a lot of time, and we needed to change the game, etc. So, or even a case where only you start one of them. So obviously we've got a load of attacking players. I think obviously trying to get the combinations right. I think he did so for the majority, but I think that's something to work on. I think in terms of the final, I'm still a few days on, I'm still a bit puzzled by the Declan Rice substitution, I've got to say, because I thought he was playing brilliantly, and as much as I'm a big fan of Jordan Henderson, I think he was really off the pace, I have to say. I think you could tell he's coming back from injury. I don't think it was his best performance, and the fact it was 2 substitutions wasted in the final, because bringing Henderson on and then subbing him off in extra time, and then it was a similar thing with, as you mentioned, John, with Jack Grealish in the Denmark game in the semi-final. He come on and then not long later he comes off. So, but I think it's in-game management that Southgate, I think most of the time he's got right, but when it comes to the crunch moments, that's something to work on. And you have to argue that that Mancini outmanaged Southgate in the second half and extra time. But that's something to obviously Southgate to work on. And we scored obviously a few goals in Ukraine and got a couple against Germany and Denmark as well. But I think there's even more to come from an attacking sense and from this side, I'd like to think as well. As we've mentioned, me and you, John, that plenty of positives and not a huge amount of negatives. Let's go to you, Jack, with anything to work on.
Yeah, you've already hit the nail on the head, boys. For me, in terms of the substitutions, I think Southgate's very much got to learn and adapt to, as you mentioned there, Bill. The Henderson one was very strange. It's so difficult, obviously, considering to get momentum, even if you are playing 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, as it was in terms of the extra time. Yeah, he's got legs, but Bellingham, he's played a lot of minutes in Dortmund, and he's yet another young player, but I felt even bringing Bellingham on, as you mentioned there, Rice was having such a positive impact on the game. And it's not like England were going forward, were they, at all? So you could very much play 2 DMs, Rice and Phillips, to tell them just don't go a bit more further forward, stay behind the ball. But it's no negative on Henderson. He's a very good player, but I very much agree with that, Bill, in terms of he didn't really impact the game. We didn't have enough time, really. But it's the offensive nature that I've already spoke about, Bill and John and everyone at home. The offensive nature and the balance of the team, I think going into the World Cup needs to be a lot more better. I don't know if he'll stick to a 4-2-3-1. I think he will, because it's done him well. It's got him to the Euros, but the combination play, I think Southgate needs to get a bit more better, be a bit more free in, like, and telling you lads and everyone at home, it's look at the squads we've got. We've got one of the best young squads in the whole of Europe, and just let them free. Just let them free and play a bit more attacking.
Yeah.
Especially when you have got Rice and Phillips in the midfield. I'm just going to sit there and do the defensive work.
Yeah, just a couple of things before we wrap up, lads. I'm glad you mentioned Bellingham, Jack, because I'd like to see him play more in the World Cup qualifiers and the friendlies leading into the World Cup, because I think he should get more minutes. I know he played it a couple of cameo appearances in this tournament, but I'd like to see him potentially get more starts for England, because I think he's an absolute star of the future, without a doubt. And I think, to be honest, the second half in the final against Italy was echoes of, the second half and extra time against Croatia as well, where they sort of dominated the ball, and it was hard for us to get out. And that's 2 tournaments in a row that's happened against really quality midfield. So obviously Germany got quality midfield, but they're a transitional side at the moment. So I think that's, whether that's a mentality thing or getting the midfield combination in selection right, then that's something obviously for Gareth Southgate to think about. But I think that's 2 more things to consider.
Yeah. I think that's experience as well, though, in it, Bill. I think a lot of those players are so young, and obviously like the Foden, Mount, Bellingham, they're all getting minutes and they're playing to the elite level of European football. And the Premier League is no easy league. It's probably the most difficult. So in terms of the experience, I think you would have, as all those fans have got that experience now of watching England get to a final. That in itself is a bit of confidence for the England fans. And this squad is capable. It's got the players to. It's got the management to. I still believe in Southgate, but I think the players, most importantly, Southgate is learning experience. It makes it. It's obviously when Liverpool. I know it's very different in terms of international tournament, but Liverpool going to the Champions League against Real Madrid, we got absolutely battered in every aspect of the game. And then obviously, yes, we did play Tottenham in the final the year after, but it was that experience of being there and the whole occasion. It plays so much, and you can never, money can't buy that, the experience in which I do for all the players.
Yeah, agreed. Hopefully we'll harness it and take it into the World Cup, which is not long to go, lads. So right,
and that's the, just before we wrap up on the video, the World Cup is going to be World Cup is really going to be a better watermark, because we're coming up against Argentina, we'll be coming up possibly against Brazil, that sort of stuff. It's the big, more teams to play against. It's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, it'd be tough. Well, it'd be tough for everyone, especially in Qatar with the foreign conditions, alien conditions for a lot of the players. So, right, well, positive video to finish the Euros on, lads. So, Jack, John, thanks for joining, lads. Really appreciate it. So, thanks everyone for watching. Subscribe to Garage Football if you're new, and let us know your thoughts on the England's Euro campaign in the comments below. It'd be great to read those. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.